Welcome to the Manifestation and Money podcast, where we bridge the worlds of the taboo topic of money with the woo-woo world of manifestation. We're your hosts, Chris and Jenny Schultz.
We're not just about dollars and cents around here. We're all about lifestyle design. You can be working towards financial independence while still living a life you love today.
Get ready for insightful conversations with guests who have embraced the FIRE movement by achieving financial independence and retiring early, as well as entrepreneurs and individuals who defied the norm and have paved their own way to a life they love.
Together, we'll explore the powerful connection between mindset, financial freedom, and living a purposeful life. And of course, we'll be sharing our own journey to how we carved our path to a seven-figure net worth before hitting the big 4-0. Are you ready to ignite your financial future? Then let's dive right in.
Welcome to the Manifestation and Money podcast, where your journey to financial independence and the life you love begins now.
Welcome to the Manifestation and Money podcast, Lindsey. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I am so excited to have you today. Can you please share a little bit about who you are and your story?
Yeah, so I am a financial therapist and I've been doing therapy, like normal therapy. I've been a licensed therapist, I should say, for 5 years. And I've been on my own financial wellness journey really for 8. And I didn't know that you could actually merge those two things until just over a year ago. I was listening to an audiobook totally unrelated to the topic, but the narrator brought up financial therapy and I paused the book and I was like, this sounds like me and I am it, but I need to go make sure. And I went home and I Googled everything there was to know about a financial therapist. And as it turns out, because I am a master level therapist, I qualify for the certification. So then I got it and here I am and I love it. And it's been truly like when you find your passion in life, this is where I'm at and it feels really great to be here.
That's neat. When I came across your little tag there, the financial therapist, I didn't know it was a thing either. So hearing you say that it is actually a thing is really cool. And I think it's so important to catch people's attention in this day and age, fast-paced world that we're in. So different language is going to resonate for different people. So to hear a financial therapist, to me, that's a really clear connection of you're connecting money and probably your relationship. I'm going to let you give exactly what that is, but financial therapist, it definitely just holds an area of expertise, I think.
Yeah. And it's so funny to your point is everyone knows without knowing what a financial therapist probably does. Right. And so anytime I'm like out in public, it's like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a financial therapist. Oh, that sounds so cool. What is that? And I simply say, I merge behavioral therapy with financial coaching, which of course they've already deducted, but they're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's very fun.
To connect the dots. That's neat. So what kind of things then do you work with people on?
Yeah. So quite literally, I merge behavioral therapy. That's my background. And then with financial coaching. And so I typically would look at present concerns, right? We call that the presenting problem. So what do you feel is going on? What's wrong? Like, why are things not working for you? Why are you quote unquote bad with money? That's what I hear all the time. I'm just not great with money. And we dig into that. Do you hold credit card debt? Do you get out of that debt cycle and back into it? And that's when I hear often, it's like, I've climbed out of debt before and yet here I am again. Or people interested in understanding how you possibly retire one day, right? And talking about that from a behavioral standpoint. And then there's really 2 bodies of research on it, but one body says that money habits are established by the time you're 7 years old. The other says by the time you're 9 years old. So I comfortably say money habits are established by the time you're 10 years old. So I really take a look at your upbringing around money because your behaviors and habits have been formed so early on that it's really important to make the connections of why you might be doing something or acting some way or feeling some way about money based on what you knew growing up. And then we go into goals and we talk about, I call them your North Stars because they're your guiding lights on the path that you want to take. Everything is really individualized. There's no real blanket advice that I can give somebody. And so we talk about what do you want for your specific life? What are you interested in? What are your hobbies? And then we bring in the numbers and we say, okay, how can we make that life happen for you using money as a vehicle to get you there?
I really like that because for us around here, and a lot of our listeners are in the FIRE movement. So they are trying to achieve financial independence and early retirement. So I can just picture somebody who is trying so hard, but if they have money belief programming from before they were 10, that is causing them to, like you said, either cycle through, get out of debt, but immediately jump back in or hold high credit card debt. If that is something that is ingrained in them from a young age, just to have the knowing and the option to, oh, there are people out there that could help me flip the switch and work around what I could be stuck on instead of just spinning their tires at where they're at, knowing they want this thing, but in a sense, not able to get themselves there, right?
And it's so common, especially I see individuals and I see couples. Couples have to work even harder, right? Because having two backgrounds and so much of it is unexplored. So when you have one partner who grew up uneducated around money, maybe a big scarcity mindset, things like that, right? That can be really inhibiting when another person didn't grow up that way. And then having those conversations, how do we get on the same page? Often I see couples, one person is really excited about the FIRE movement. They're like, this is like what I want to do. Time is my currency. And the other partner is just not on board. We explore that more. We look into that, like, why is that for you? Just last week, I had a couple, the male in the relationship is very comfortable holding credit card debt. He's like, it's not my first priority to get out of it. The female is not that way. She's like, get me out of this debt as soon as possible. She's feeling suffocated constantly. And it has so much to do with he watched his parents carry credit card debt. It was a means to get food on the table. That in some ways was a source of pride that they had accessibility to get food on the table, right? These are really heavy things that without us really exploring that together, they probably wouldn't have been able to quite figure out on their own on the surface.
Right. So in his mindset and his security feeling was the credit card is a tool to get us what we need.
Exactly.
And for her, the credit card is a burden. It's this extra bill that we're not paying off every month.
Exactly.
So do you work then individually with people, and then do they bring their spouse into it sometimes, like, or do they typically start that off as couples right out of the gate?
Most of the time I see couples together, but there have been several. I would honestly say probably closer to 30% of my couples actually start with the women who come to me and say, I want to get this together, or I don't feel equal in the partnership because I'm not the one that does our finances. I don't bring home as much income. Therefore, I don't have enough power. I've seen that quite a bit. And so we work through just mostly understanding the language, right? Of how this whole money thing works. It's been kept for a very long time in some sense. And so really feeling like they have the tools and language to approach money in an equal way with their partner. Then we bring the partner in and we're like, okay, let's get to it,
Right. So working together. I want to flip back here for a sec to that the beliefs in your head happen before the age of 10, or the beliefs around money, especially because I have a soon to be 8-year-old in my house. So all of a sudden I feel like a tick, 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 tick happening in my head here, because I feel like an under 10 isn't really grasping the concept of money or using money yet, right? So the fact that they're building those money beliefs at an age before they are utilizing money themselves is kind of fascinating to me. So from a standpoint from what you're seeing, do you have any suggestions on how to shape kids' money relationship with kids? Or are these just blind things that we're doing as parents that we don't even realize we're passing on these bad habits?
Both and, right? There. Sometimes we don't notice it. It really boils down to self-awareness and intentionality, right? And if you yourself are somebody that understands how money works and you have your priorities set, then that will be passed on and modeled to your kids. So that is, if you have younger kids, the listener has younger kids like mine. I have a 1.5, well, almost 1.5 and 3.5-year-old. super young, very impressionable. But my daughter sees like at the store, Mommy, I want this toy. I say, oh, honey, we're not prioritizing right now. We're not prioritizing that toy right now. We're actually prioritizing our family vacation to Texas next week. And so we're putting money away in a savings account. Using that language with her. So she already has like, oh, she might not know what a savings account is, but that's fine. She doesn't know half the things I'm talking about, but she figures it out. It's all context. But so using the language of priorities, I think is really powerful, especially with kids, because so many times you come across adults who think that a budget is really depriving themselves, right? And the reality is, for adults too, it boils down to what are you prioritizing? What are you intentionally spending, saving, investing your money for? And the same language is true for children, right? And so if you have like your 8-year-old, did you say boy?
Yes.
Yeah. So he's of the perfect age to let him make money mistakes. It's really hard to see our kids make mistakes when they impulsively want a $50 toy and you're like, that is so dumb. He's going to use it for 4 minutes. And then and instead of letting the lesson be in the store of, I don't think you're going to want that, buddy, right? The lesson is instead, let him buy it. Let him make the $50 mistake. Come back a week, 3 days, whatever later and say, hey, I noticed that you haven't really been playing with that toy that you wanted so badly. Do you think that was a good purchase? Talk to me about that, right? Or he is still playing with it. Encourage that. Wow, I love that you bought a toy you're so happy about and you're still playing with. That must feel really good to buy something that meant a lot to you, right? Because if we can let them make the $50 mistakes, they won't make those $50,000 mistakes later on in life.
I like that. We had a similar moment like that around here. We were literally at the dollar store. So this isn't even a $50 mistake. And I told him, I'm like, we're at the dollar store getting something else. As a treat today, you're allowed to go pick out one thing. One thing here. I know what my price limit is. We got $1 here. So he went through the whole store and he has a really hard time making decisions. So he literally went through the whole store like, okay, maybe this, maybe this. And then I was like, okay, I'm almost done. Have you made your decision? And then pretty much grabbed a random container of silly putty in front of him off the shelf. He's like, okay, I have too many choices. I can't decide. Grab the silly putty. We got home later that day and he opened it and not even an eighth of the container actually had silly putty in it. And he was just like the look of disappointment on his face. And I was like, that's why it's important, buddy, to take your time and choose the thing you want. Because I know he just willy-nilly grabbed it off the shelf at the last second. And he was like, well, can I take it back? Like, no. But then his 4-year-old sister, she's like, well, I want it. I'm like, okay, Kinley, you go get $1 out of your piggy bank and see if he'll sell it to you. So they did that. And then I'm like, now you have $1. You could go back to the store and pick out the thing you actually wanted to. So I can see it wasn't a $50 mistake, but I think he's going to hold that with him for future purchases because he totally had buyer's remorse.
Oh, he totally will. That's a perfect example. I love that. And yes, and just to add, I mean, that sounds wonderful what you did. I always like to add the emotions onto it, just as you did. Like you seem really disappointed, right? And so every money decision you make, your kids make, anything is always driven by an emotion, whether or not people realize this or not, right? So as big as you're paying your mortgage, you're paying your rent, you can feel proud that you're putting a roof over your family's head. Okay. That's an emotion. That's an emotionally charged purchase. Or you can feel disappointed by how high rent costs are now. But all the way down to if you're out getting a latte, you want to feel satiated, right? You want to feel satisfied in some way. So same thing with kids, like they want to feel happiness. As a parent, buying a gift for your kids, even like an impulse purchase or something, right? Is I want to feel happy and I also want to make them feel happy. That's what we're after. We're not after the toy. We're not after the silly putty. We're not after the thing as much as we are the emotion. We just have to start peeling back those layers to really figure that out.
Huh, that's interesting. Fun perspectives here. So say there's an adult listening, they might not even have kids. Are there any tools or techniques a person can do just to self-assess themselves on some of their money habits?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things, again, going back to the priorities, is I like to use that language. I think it's true for no matter your age. If you look at your bank statements and you look at your calendar, I will tell you what your priorities are. Now, you have to decide if that is truly in alignment with what you want your priorities to look like, or what you say your priorities are, right? And so if we're out of that alignment, that can feel really icky. And that's where so much disconnect, or cognitive dissonance is what that's called, that comes into play. So taking a good hard look at your calendar and your bank statements can be a really good way to test yourself of what are my priorities really telling me right now.
Interesting. Well, that's a fun, simple tool then that the listeners can do. I really like that.
Yeah.
So for you, I always like to ask this, what is the biggest piece of advice you have for someone who is trying to create a lifestyle they love? And maybe even add to that, even working towards financial independence, because I think you get a glimpse into that world.
Oh, totally. Yeah, lots of times. My favorite thing is really goal setting. I call them your North Stars, your guiding lights, right? And I think somewhere along the line of life, we stop dreaming as adults. It just becomes less of a thing, right? It's like kids have these big dreams and they're really fun, and adults don't do that as much. So whether it's you as an individual or you and a partner, it's really important to dream together. What can we do? What can money provide for us? And I think starting in that positive state can be so healthy and such a good way to start off the conversation. So I really encourage people, like, whether you're like the cozy, quiet type who wants to write in your, journal in your notebook, awesome. If you're like, I need the big, huge post-it that goes up on the wall, some loud music, and just like brain dump all over, awesome. Do it that way. Set the environment. I think your environment is an incredibly important piece of this, because if your environment is super chaotic, your internal world is also going to feel really chaotic. So if you can kind of make that space really comfortable and happy for you, while you're doing some of this dreaming and brainstorming of where do you want to go? What do you want to do? How do you want to spend your time? Because as you well know, we have time and we have money and we have energy, and those are our currencies. And so we're trading all the time between the three currencies. And so how do we show up in each kind of realm? And that's what I usually tell people, is start with dreaming, start with the brainstorming, and just get some ideas out there.
Mm-hmm. I resonate with that so much. Thank you for sharing that. And where can the listeners reach out to get more of your wisdom and insights?
Yeah, so I'm still a solopreneur. So it's me on all the things that would be getting back to you. I am Coping with Lindsey on Instagram. That's also my website, copingwithlindsey.com. You can learn all about my financial therapy practice there. And my email's also on there. So if you have questions or you want a consultation, I always do free 15-minute consultations. So reach out, and if we need to uncover some stuff to get you propelled further, then that's the best place to find me.
Okay, perfect. And I think you said you had a free resource too that I can drop in the show notes for you if you'd like.
Yeah, I have a free investing guide for beginners. The other thing that I really, really encourage people to do is negotiate their medical bills. So I have a free resource on how everyone should be negotiating their medical bills, because even a clinic visit is negotiable. So
fascinating. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Lindsey.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Manifestation and Money podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation and want to continue your journey to financial empowerment and creating a life you love, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review.
Come follow us on Instagram at Manifestation and Money Podcast or at 4Leaf Lifestyle for more inspiration and behind the scenes content. Remember, your life is yours to live. Your financial freedom journey is as unique as you are. So hop in the driver's seat. It's time to create the life of your dreams.